Alright, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the original Alice in the Wonderland. I feel like a lot of people don't really realize this. Disney's Alice in Wonderland is not the original Alice in Wonderland. The original was written by Lewis Carroll, which was the pen name of Charles Lutwig, or however you pronounce his middle name, Dodgson. And the 1955 Disney movie changes a lot of what happens in the actual movie. The original book is way stranger. I guess you could say, yeah, it's definitely darker actually than the Disney version. First of all, Disney basically combined materials from two different books: Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and its sequel, Through the Looking Glass. So while Disney kept iconic characters like Alice, the White Rabbit, Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, and the Queen of Hearts, the actual plot is very different. For example, let's talk about the trial. In the book, it's the Knave of Hearts who's on trial for stealing the Queen's tarts. Alice is basically just called up as a random witness. But in the Disney movie, Alice herself becomes a target and eventually has to run for her life from the kingdom. The Disney also removed characters like the Duchess, the Mock Turtle, and the Griffin, alongside of several other scenes to keep the movie from becoming too long. And also, remember that talking doorknob? Yeah, that's not in the original book. In the book, Alice simply discovers the tiny door and finds a key that unlocks it. Also, like I said before, the book is way darker. Another thing Disney really toned down is how casually cruel everyone is to Alice. The characters in the book are constantly loud, rude, aggressive, and confusing. Take the Duchess's baby, for example, and the pig baby scene. In the book, the Duchess aggressively shakes the baby while singing a disturbing lullaby about beating him whenever he sneezes. I mean, sneezing is like a bodily thing, man. Why you gotta beat your child for that? That's what I call an abusive mother, jeez. Then Alice takes the baby, and the baby actually changes into a pig in her arms. I would have dropped that baby so fast. And then there's the Queen of Hearts. She's constantly screaming off of their heads, which I'm pretty sure they do at least a few times in the movie. But I can't quite remember that part because I'm a little bit confused. Pretty sure she says it in the movie. Pretty sure she does. If she doesn't, sue me. The king secretly pardons a lot of people afterward, but the threat of sudden execution is basically hanging over Wonderland the entire time. Honestly, the entire book can feel like a nightmare about completely losing control. Like, seriously. Alice constantly questions who she even is. She forgets her own name, messes up poems she's supposed to know, gets basic facts wrong, and starts wondering whether oh my gosh, I can't speak English, whether she's even herself anymore. She's basically thinking, who am I supposed to be exactly? And she's constantly changing size too, so she literally feels like she's trapped in a body she can't control. Even the drink me scene is stranger in the book. Before Alice drinks the bottle, Carol spends quite a bit of time talking about children who supposedly got into trouble because because they didn't pay attention to warnings, including Grimm's story involving poisoning and other dangers, which I don't understand what Victorian people were on when they were teaching their kids, but honestly, I kind of like it. I don't know why. So the whole thing has this weird feeling of you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen next. And then there's the book's constant jokes about death. For example, Alice meets a mouse and immediately starts talking about how good her cat is at catching mice. Which, first of all, what made you think that's a good thing to start a conversation with a mouse? What? The mouse is obviously horrified by this, and there's also the famous Mouse's Tale, which contains pretty grim humor about a mouse being judged and sentenced to death. Disney obviously wasn't going to make a children's animated movie revolve around jokes about executing mice and other dark humor, so a lot of that darker humor was softened or removed. And this is what I find really interesting about this stuff. Like I said before, Victorian things are they were on something, but normal children's book in the Victoria era often focused heavily on moral lessons, obedience, and teaching children how they were supposed to behave. But Carroll's book pretty much throws all the expectations out of the window. Instead of giving Alice a straightforward moral lesson, Wonderland is chaotic, absurd, unpredictable, and completely illogical. Characters constantly give her rules that don't make sense, people argue over nonsense, words have ridiculous meanings, and Alice is basically trying to make sense of a world that refuses to make sense. Whew. And then we have the 2010 live action Alice in Wonderland, and which that one is even further from the original. It's essentially a sequel or reimagining where Alice returns to Wonderland as a teenager and gets caught up with this huge conflict involving the Red Queen, the White Queen, and the Jabberwocky. But honestly, it's still a great movie. Being different from the original doesn't automatically make an adaptation bad. But so basically, if you only know Alice in Wonderland from Disney, you might be surprised at how different Carroll's book actually is. Disney took the characters, mixed materials from both books, removed entire characters and scenes, changed major events, added completely new elements, and toned down a lot of the darker humor. The original isn't really like the cute, colorful adventure people sometimes imagine. It's more like, what if a child fell into a completely nonsensical world where nobody follows normal rules and everyone keeps threatening each other? And honestly, I think that's the best part of the original Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating too. And so I'm going to talk about for the day. But yeah, that's it. Also, I got this cute little guy. It's not really that much, but he's super cute, and I named him Mr. Krabs because, he's a crab. And yeah, that's it for today. Bye!